So Republican lawmakers are demanding answers from President Biden's physician and other former White House officials over what they knew, when they knew it, regarding former President Biden's health issues.
Yeah, senior White House correspondent, the younger Peter Doocy, joins us now with more. Peter.
Good morning. And the small group of staffers that formed a tight circle around Joe Biden for his one and only term all just got letters from the House Oversight Committee to come in and explain what they did or did not do to conceal his decline from the American public. So the following Biden folks, go check your mail. His former physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, the former director of the Domestic Policy Council, Neera Tanden, the former assistant to the president and chief of staff to the First Lady, Anthony Bernal, the former assistant to the president and deputy chief of staff, Annie Tomasini, and the former deputy assistant to the president and director of strategic outreach, Ashley Williams.
They're behind the scenes. They fly under the radar. These are the unelected bureaucrats that we believe had an overwhelming influence over Joe Biden and could have possibly been serving as de facto presidents of the United States.
Well, now one of the most legendary Democratic thinkers of the last century believes that nothing coming out this week should be that big of a surprise because the American people told pollsters it was a problem 2 years ago.
I think that Jake and those book, I mean, it was a good book, but to me, it was a water's wet book. Like I said, 80% of the country. I'll never forget, in May of 2023, to be exact, I saw a Washington Post ABC poll, and I went, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And it never changed.
I asked Caroline Leavitt if President Trump has followed up yet with folks that work in the offices here or that work in the residence to find some kind of files or some kind of backup to all of these Republican assertions that there were these de facto presidents, and she said that he has not yet. Back to you.
All right, Peter.
Thank you,
scandal
Peter.
continues. I think this is the right move. It needs to happen. It's important. We need to figure out who was running the White House.
Yeah.
When did they know the president was in decline? Everybody needs to be sworn under oath. And people should lose their jobs the next job they want. They shouldn't be hired as analysts. They shouldn't be hired at these big consulting firms or defense contracting jobs as well. They concealed the president's health. And honestly, the more and more we're learning from the book, it is clear no one told Joe Biden that he had lost a step. That's normal. That is normal in some point in time for someone to be in denial of their health situation when they have dementia or any type of cognitive decline. But it's up to the family and the people that surround the person to let them know. No one told the president.
Although I do want to point out that President Biden had his faculties when he was a United States senator and took classified documents. He also had his faculties when he was the vice president, and he also took classified information. And then he also had his mental faculties when he told his ghostwriter in 2017 that he knew he had classified information. So he is in the wrong here, and he should have been charged, in my opinion. But I think what's wild, well, first of all, it infuriates me that Jake Tapper is making money off this since he was part of that conspiracy and cover-up. But besides that point, what's crazy to me is this all began back in like 2019 for the 2020 campaign. He forgot an aide's name that he has known since 1981, Joey.
Yeah, you know, the Constitution specifies the minimum age a president has to be. So even the founders took into account mental acuity and maturity. I don't think they were as concerned about the latter end because, quite frankly, that long ago, you didn't live as long. I mean, that's just the truth of it. And I don't know if it's legislation. Obviously, the idea of any type of constitutional amendment at this point, as divided as we are, is probably pretty thin. But I feel like the real consequence here needs to be a piece of legislation that says we have more access to the medical records of a presidential candidate. I understand HIPAA and I believe in privacy 100%, but only one person gets to be president. Only a couple or a handful get to run for it, and you got to give up something to have that opportunity and responsibility. The real problem here, if you take all the politics, all the partisan parts away, regardless if you like what was happening under President Biden or not, the real problem is, can a group of people lie to the American people and put a charade in front of the American people and convince the American people to vote and put their trust and faith in someone to lead their country for now or 4 more years when that person couldn't lead his own daily schedule? And that's not even belittling Joe Biden. That's being honest about the state that now we're learning everyone knew he was in.
And they concealed it from the American people. So the Democrats have two problems. They have the the Biden problem of lying to the American people for looks like almost a decade that he's been in decline. They lied to the American people on that. The other part is they have an identity crisis, and they don't know how to communicate to the American people on basic things. And they're looking for their next Joe Rogan since they pushed him out of the party. But they're trying to throw money at it. And the New York Times put it this way. The quiet effort amounts to an audacious skeptic might say desperate, but that the Democrats can buy more cultural relevance online despite the fact that casually right-leaning touchstones like Mr. Rogan's podcast were not built by political donors and did not raise overnight. They want to give money to this issue, but it's not organic, Lisa.
Exactly, and that's their problem. You know, as we were speaking earlier in the show, it's not the messenger, it's the message of the Democrat Party. It's their ideas. It's the thing that Americans categorically reject some of these things like men and women's sports. They reject the idea of open borders. And a lot of we're just talking about like the basics, right? You know, President Trump, he initiated a very common sense campaign. Right. And I think that's why he won the popular vote. I think that's why he won so many different groups of people, because they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I want sanity to be restored in America.
Yeah, let's listen to what Joe Rogan had to say about it.
I'm sure they're scrambling to try to create their own version of this show. Right. This is one thing that keeps coming up, like we need our own Joe Rogan. Right. But they had me.
Well, number one, they had.
Yeah, real quick, I want to point this out. Maybe I'm a contrarian here. I don't think so. It's not, in my opinion, have you ever played the board game Risk? If you take ground and defend the ground you have, there's no ground to be taken back. That other side just loses ground. What's happened with the left is Joe Rogan and Elon Musk didn't move towards the right. It's just what they believed in through Trump. The right has adopted or brought forward as a part of their messaging. The Democrats haven't lost ground in individuals. They've lost ground on issues all across the board. They can't manufacture a spokesperson for a message that doesn't exist. When the Republicans say, we don't trust the pharmaceutical industry, when the Republicans say that we want people to have more access to information, those are things that are generally looked at as a liberal ideal. When the Republican Party has embraced liberalism as a part of its Big Ten, what does the left have left other than crazy?
But the thing is, podcasts weren't supposed to be a part of a political operation. It's supposed to be about conversations
social narrative,
and talking with people and being able to talk for 3 hours about something and getting rid of the talking points. I think the problem with the Democratic Party is that they have no authenticity. And they believe there's only one way of thinking. They hate disagreement. They hate thorough debate. And they suppress debate, which is why you got idiots on college campuses. When other people have different views, they shut them down.
Well, and I think the reason why the Democrat Party is struggling so badly with President Trump in office is they still have that myopic Washington, D.C. viewpoint, and you can't put President Trump in any sort of box. You can't put him in the Republican box. You can't put him in the Democrat box. He is totally unprecedented. He is a new paradigm. And so that's why they're struggling to try to figure out how to go after him, because to Joey's point, he created his own thing.